Welcome. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating, systematic approach to personal excellence. It's called the 12 Dimensions of Balance. Now, this deep dive was actually requested by Sachin Karnik, who is a presenter and researcher with the Angel Wing LLC, the very organization that developed this framework we're about to explore. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to follow a really logical path here. First, we'll talk about the fundamental resource we all have, our mental energy. Then we'll look at the biggest leaks in that system, the things that drain us. After that, we'll uncover what this framework calls the master key to plugging those leaks. And from there, we'll map out the 12 specific areas of life that need our focus and see how that whole journey ultimately leads to something called self-mastery.
All right, first things first, we have to talk about this central resource this entire system is built on, your mental energy. And the key idea here is that this isn't just some fluffy metaphor. It's treated as a real, tangible, and, most importantly, finite resource that we spend every single day.
So this framework views the mind as an organic powerhouse. And just think about that for a second. Every single thought you have, every little decision you make, every emotion you feel, all of it is an action that consumes actual energy. It's not just about the heavy lifting, solving some complex problem at work. It's all the background processes, regulating your mood, trying to stay focused, even just worrying about the future. It all draws from the exact same limited power supply. So if our mind really does run on a finite fuel source, kind of like a battery, then the most important question is, where are the leaks? What's draining that battery when we're not even trying to? Our mental energy is constantly being used, right? But according to this framework, it's not our productive work or our big projects that are the biggest problem. No, the system points to one single category of mental activity that acts like a constant, quiet leak on our vitality. And it's what stops most of us from ever reaching our full potential. And here it is, the number one culprit. Personal conflicts. Now, this means both the internal stuff, the worry, the self-doubt, the anxiety, and the external stuff, like arguments with other people. The framework calls them energy leeches, and honestly, it's a perfect description. Think about your smartphone when you have a ton of apps running in the background. Each one is just sipping a little bit of battery. That is exactly what unresolved conflicts do to your mind. They're always on, constantly demanding your brain's processing power and draining your reserves, even when you're trying to focus on something completely different. Okay, so if this constant energy drain from conflict is the big problem, then what's the antidote? Well, the entire system proposes one single powerful principle as the answer. So if conflict is the leak, the master key to sealing that leak is balance. And the core idea here is that imbalance is a form of conflict. Think about it. When one area of your life is totally neglected, it creates this internal tension, this friction that just drains your energy. So by consciously, systematically bringing all the different parts of your life into harmony, you stop that unnecessary energy loss and you build a really stable foundation for growth. This quote really drives home just how critical this concept is. Balance isn't presented as the final goal, like happiness or joy. Instead, it's the non-negotiable foundation you build everything else on top of. The argument is simple. Without that underlying stability, any search for lasting happiness is doomed to fail, because your precious energy is still being wasted on putting out fires from all those unresolved imbalances. Okay, so balance sounds great, but it's also a pretty abstract idea. How do you actually apply it in a practical way? Well, this framework breaks it all down into a holistic model that covers 12 very specific areas of life. And here they are, the 12 dimensions. Let's just touch on these so you get the full picture. You've got your practical pillars, career, and finances. That's your work, your material stability. Then your personal well-being, physical health and mental health, the absolute bedrock of your energy. Then you have your connections, family and relationships, and your social life. Your inner world gets addressed through personal development. That's your growth and learning, and spiritual life, which is all about your sense of purpose. The framework also makes sure to include recreation and leisure, so you have joy and play in your life. Environment is about the impact of your physical surroundings. Contribution to society taps into our need to give back. And then finally, life vision is the glue that holds it all together, your big picture purpose and direction. It is a true 360-degree view of what a full life looks like. Now, this is absolutely crucial. These are not 12 separate boxes you can just check off one by one. The framework makes it crystal clear that they are all completely interconnected, like a spider's web. If you damage one single thread, let's say your finances fall apart, that stress is going to vibrate across the entire web. It's going to impact your mental health, it's going to strain your relationships, and it might even affect your physical health. And that's why the goal isn't to be perfect in one area, but to find a state of functional, healthy balance across all 12. So what's the payoff? What happens when you actually succeed in reducing all those energy-draining conflicts by balancing these 12 areas of your life? According to this framework, you're not just creating a more peaceful life, you're laying the groundwork for the ultimate goal. And this path isn't a quick fix, not at all. It's laid out as a very deliberate, multi-year process. Year 1 is all about triage, construction. It's about establishing that foundational balance across all 12 dimensions. This is the hard part, identifying the biggest imbalances and taking real steps to fix them. Then year 2 is about stabilization. You're not building anymore, you're sustaining. The goal is to make that balanced state your new normal. And only then, once that foundation is truly solid, the framework suggests that in year 3, the door to genuine self-mastery finally begins to open. The framework is really specific with its words here, and it's an important distinction. Personal transformation, that's the process. It's the day-to-day work, changing your thoughts, your habits to create that balance. Self-mastery, on the other hand, is the outcome. It's the cultivated skill that grows out of that long process, the ability to consciously control your inner state and act in line with your goals, no matter what's happening around you. Transformation is the climb. Self-mastery is the view from the top. So where in the world does a journey like this actually start? Well, the very first principle taught is acceptance. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Acceptance directly targets those internal conflicts, the worry, the judgment, the resistance that we know are the biggest energy drains. By learning to embrace your current reality exactly as it is without fighting it, you basically stop the leak right at the source. And this isn't about being passive or just giving up. It's about creating a calm, stable starting point from which real, meaningful, intentional change can actually happen. And that's our look at the core concepts behind the 12 dimensions of balance. The central idea is a really simple but powerful equation. If you reduce conflict, you conserve energy. And that conserved energy, when you channel it through a balanced life, builds the foundation for self-mastery. The system suggests that by consciously harmonizing these 12 areas, you're not just making your present life better, you're unlocking the potential for a totally different future. For more information, please contact Sachin Karnik at the contact information you'll find in the description box.